Game 3, Spurs, Thunder, Western Conference Finals. Let's preview it. Happy Friday, or should I say happy Spurs Day. Welcome back to Spurs in Focus, right here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Amazon Podcast. The list goes on and on. Go subscribe right now. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Spurs in Focus Substack, completely free. Go sign up if you're part of the crew. My name is Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs writer in San Antonio, and thank you for making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. What are we talking about today? Well, Game 3. Spurs Thunder, but this time the scene is in San Antonio. The first home Western Conference game for your Silver and Black is tonight. We're going to look at the game previews. Well, can I look at the series so far? I get it. 2 games, sample size is small, but are there trends you got to be watching out for? Some adjustments the teams need to do, or hopefully the Thunder don't do any adjustments that get the W for them. And then give a prediction. So much more. I'm just going to bring in our guest, who's here to close out the week here at Spurs in Focus, Mr. James Espinosa, the Sunday Sports Rush out in Corpus Christi. You want to give him a follow right now at Sir Edward James. What's up, buddy?
How's it going, Jeff? Good to be back on Spurs in Focus, man. I'm doing great.
We missed you, man. It feels like, even though you were on last week, it feels like a long time.
It has, man. It has. We've had a couple of Western Conference Finals games already. Spurs closed out their series with the Timberwolves since the last time we talked. So, in terms of playoffs, right, it does feel like it's been a while since we've spoken.
It does. Well, let's dive into it. So, before we get into tonight's game, let's look back at the first 2. Split 1-1. Thunder got the last game. All right. Are there trends or certain things that you're noticing in a small sample size through 2 games?
Absolutely there is, Jeff. And I think the one very noticeable trend in these both 2 games are, so far in the Western Conference Finals, is the Spurs turning over the ball. I mean, let's just face facts here, right? To me, that has been the overarching story so far in these first 2 games. The turnovers, man. It's been back-to-back games that they've had 20-plus turnovers, right? Just the other night, 21, I believe, in game 2, if I'm not mistaken, 21 turnovers in that game. That's not going to cut it, Jeff. That is the main thing that I've watched. It just seems like the Spurs, and despite the amazing epic win that they had in game 1, they were giving the ball away quite a lot to the Thunder. And Oklahoma City, they have such an advantage when it comes to what they've been able to do with points off of turnovers as well. Just the other night in game 2, they had 21 turnovers by the Spurs, was converted into 27 points for Oklahoma City. So look, the numbers are out there, man. To me, it's been the turnovers, and that is the most concerning thing for me as a viewer of the Spurs and someone who follows this team pretty intently.
Right now, they're averaging 22 turnovers per game versus the Thunder. That is unacceptable. Just unacceptable. And let's talk about the other elephant in the room. The bulk of that is from Stephon Castle. Are you surprised that he is turning the ball over left and right? I mean, I think in total, he has about 20 turnovers already through 2 games.
I am a little bit surprised. We saw this sort of happen in the Timberwolves series as well. He was a little bit loose with the ball. He wasn't the primary ball handler, of course, because De'Aaron Fox was in that series and he was, handling the ball for the most part. And yeah, the 20 turnovers for Stephon Castle, that is concerning. And I've seen guys out there, Jeff, and not you or anybody that's associated with Spurs in Focus, but I've seen other hosts, other radio hosts, other bloggers, etc. I've seen them try to minimize the turnovers that Steph has been committing, saying that, well, you can credit that to Oklahoma City's defense. You can credit that to Steph trying to overcompensate for De'Aaron Fox being out and trying to be a little bit too much of a playmaker. Look, man, you can make all the excuses in the world for Stephon Castle. It is what it is. He was tasked to be the primary ball handler that night. He's been the primary ball handler this series. He needs to take care of the ball better because 20 turnovers out of the Spurs, 44 total turnovers in 2 Western Conference Finals games, that's not going to cut it. That's going to be losing basketball.
He's aware of it. And Mitch Johnson said after the game 2 loss that they actually spoken to Castle about the situation. And So they all are aware. So that's good. Now they just got to turn that into less turnovers. Like, you're going to turn the ball over. I get that. It happens. But we saw, especially in game 2, just some egregious turnovers. Throwing the ball to what he thought was Champagnie's going to be there and just sails out of bounds. It was the fact that the timing of the turnovers were just at the worst possible times. Say what you want about that over and back, whether it was or not, it still was a turnover. So, yeah, it's just the timing of it, and it stifles whenever they have a run or the Thunder on a run. It gives them more fuel because, let's face it, the Thunder statistically are just feasting on those turnovers. That's why, a big reason why they were in game 1, and that's a big reason why they won game 2. The Thunder are averaging 27.5 points off Spurs turnovers in this series. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you're just giving away points at this matter, right? You're giving them the ball, you're giving them the opportunities to run and gun and get in the fast break, and that is something you don't want to do with Oklahoma City. They thrive on getting you on those fast break moments where they're just crashing to the basket. They're getting to the rim, they're getting in the paint, and that's something that Oklahoma City was able to do quite well in game 2. They were able to get in the paint and disrupt what the Spurs are trying to do defensively. 55 points to the Spurs, 27 points off of turnovers so far in this series in favor of Oklahoma City. That is a wide margin. That is a ridiculous margin. And yeah, man, they're going to have to clean it up. The Spurs will have to clean it up, whether De'Aaron Fox ends up playing in game 3 or not. Game time decision as we speak. Dylan Harper as well. Game time decision as we speak. If those two cannot go, then, man, it's going to be tough, man, because Steph Castle, I don't want him to play conservative because he is that type of player that when he's allowed to freelance, so to speak, he is that playmaker. He is a guy who's going to take extra risk. So it's a delicate balance between him not being too careless, but him still sticking to his strengths and being an overall playmaker for this team.
I don't mind, and I wouldn't mind if they play McLaughlin more. He knows his role. He's a vet. He's been side next to a guy named Mike Conley in Minnesota. He knows he's going to learn from the best. So as long as he's just a quarterback, that's it. I don't need him to be knocking down shots. Just keep those turnovers low. That's all I want from McLaughlin. Your thoughts?
Yeah, seeing J-Mac get into the game, of course, the Spurs needed some sort of switch up, some sort of change. And I thought in the minutes that he did produce, Jeff, he played 7 total minutes in game 2. But, I mean, he wasn't afraid to shoot when he had to shoot. He was 2 for 2 from 3, 2 of 3 from the field, of course. Did have 1 assist. His plus minus wasn't great, but, that's kind of an overall thing. Like
Sure.
the team on the floor at the time wasn't doing well, so that kind of added into his plus minus. But still, I mean, he can be the facilitator, so to speak. He can bring the ball up court. He can slow down the pace and have the Spurs start running their offense and not trying to get into a little bit of a chaotic style of play like we've seen the Spurs have been without De'Aaron Fox. I do like J-Mac minutes. Hopefully it's not a ton of minutes,
Right.
but I do like him coming in for spurts throughout the game to try to settle things down for this offense.
Are you expecting the refs to call a tighter game? Game 2 had very questionable non-calls. I thought we're in the NBA, not the UFC. Was Hartenstein thinking he was in the octagon? Because that's all he was doing was arm barring Wemby left and right, and sometimes right in front of the refs, and they didn't say a thing. What about the flopping? The flopping was at its peak. I mean, Harrison Barnes, apparently he drank some super soldier serum, turned into Captain America, is able to shove J. Will or whoever it was, Cason Wallace, onto the floor, like just with his presence alone. Is this a factor? Do we have to watch out for the refs, the flopping, and so on and so forth? Then Hartenstein being a brute.
I was thinking about this morning because, man, game 2 was it was physical, right? And that's what Oklahoma City wanted to do. And in game 1, they didn't clog up the paint for Wemby, but that was the adjustment that Mark Daigneault made in game 2 was to put Hartenstein out on the floor more and be a pest and be a terror and be someone who's just going to be literally hanging on Wemby every time he is in the offensive zone every time he's in the paint specifically. I do think it's going to be a tighter game, Jeff, called for the refs. I think the Spurs, from what I've been reading, what I've been seeing you guys put out there, what I've been seeing you put out there specifically, that Mitch Johnson has already, him and his crew have clipped up some tape and they're sending it to the officials. So I think much like the Minnesota series, how things were physical at the beginning and then of course, Wemby took things into his own hands.
Yep.
Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But I do think the officials will call a tighter game. I think they're going to be more aware of what Hartenstein is trying to do down low in that painted area. So I am expecting a much tighter game once they do get in there tonight at the Frostbank Center.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought it up earlier. Yeah, as of this recording, Fox and Harper are 50-50 questionable. We won't know. There'll probably be a game time decision, and then here we go. I personally expect Fox to play for sure. Although there was a report via Shams Charania that the injury to his ankle, I believe, is a lot worse than what it appears. We shall see. But I am expecting Fox to play because Castle has proven he's a great player, but he's not a playmaker. He's not a traditional guard. He's going to try to force the action. He admitted that himself after game 2, that I think his mind is just 10 steps ahead. And I'm going to do this, and then he just turns the ball over. But I expect Fox to play, again, not based on anything, just an expectation.
And it's the question. Yeah, it's a question you got to ask ourselves, Jeff. Is he hurt or is he injured? Because if you're injured, then obviously that's sort of long term, right? But if you're hurt and if you can give it a go here in the Western Conference Finals, I mean, I do expect him to play. So they're going to need him, Jeff, especially with Harper and the questions surrounding him and what's to come in the rest of this series. Because, I mean, when Harper went down, it didn't look too great, man. The way he was kind of holding his hammy and his leg right there, that could be a couple of games. That could be the rest of the series. We got to find out about that. But this team is going to desperately need the much maligned at times De'Aaron Fox in this series to play quarterback, to be that distributor, to be that calming force with the ball in his hands, the cool, calm, and collected De'Aaron Fox, a player who has been clutch multiple times in his career, who has been one of the most clutch players in the fourth quarter throughout the duration of his career. They're going to need Fox and his abilities in this series if the Spurs want to have a chance to win.
I'm with you. They need one of those playmakers to play. Hopefully they both play, but if not, well, then it's probably be a hefty dose of J-Mac, the Castle at the point. Wouldn't mind Vassell running it from time to time. I think he can. But then it just really depletes the Spurs versus the Thunder, because the Thunder, they're going to attack. They're going to exploit that big time.
And it's the depth. It's the depth as well, Jeff. The depth that the Thunder have with being able to go 12 deep, a legitimate 12 deep. Well, now that J-Dub is going to be out for a while is what it seems. So make it 11 deep, but still, that's 11 deep compared to what the Spurs have been throwing out there has usually been 8 to 9 guys deep. So they can come at you in waves. And if Harper's going to be out, if Fox is going to be unable to go, then man, you're relying on a lot of your guys who haven't seen a lot of playoff minutes, a lot of regular season minutes for that matter, to step up in the Western Conference Finals. That's going to be a tough task, Jeff.
This is going to shape up to be a battle of attrition. Who has the most gas in the tank? Because the conference finals are every other day. Now, fortunately, the Spurs, and I guess for the Thunder, they don't have to travel too long. Not like the Spurs, Western Conference Finals versus, the Portland Trailblazers. That's a long haul. But so there's that. But you got to also factor in the Thunder got a little bit more rest than the Spurs did between series. So there's that as well. The Spurs are coming off a very physical series versus the Timberwolves. You got to factor that. But I don't want to blame it on that. But I think it's going to come down to who has the most gas in the tank. Here's the other thing, too. I look at the Spurs team, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? There is that silver lining in all this. So far in the playoffs, they have not lost back-to-back. So there's that. Check. They did get a split in OKC, so check. There's that. But, my God, it's just I'm worried about the depth that OKC has. You brought it up. I think there's a great highlight there. And the SGA after the game, after the win, he said, Well, now we got to go get a split over there too. So they know what they got to do. And sometimes I think away teams thrive in the away court. I think they just amp up their level to another level. So I'm expecting the Spurs to come out and punch. Whoever punches first, or at least throws the biggest haymaker first, may win the game. We're talking with James Espinosa. He is with the Sunday Sports Rush Radio. That's out in Corpus Christi, Texas, 1440 Keys AM. I should be specific. 9 to 11 Central. He is on next at Sir Edward James, and the only man that can take on Victor Wembenyama one-on-one in the state of Texas, apparently. Good job, man. You taught him everything you know.
Hey, man, I try my best, Jeff. I try my best to do that.
All right. Now let's get into tonight's game. Maybe give my keys that I'm going to be looking at here in game 3. We haven't touched about this. Wemby needs to cook. I need him to have that. What we saw in game 1, he needs to do it again in game 3. He looked fatigued. He said himself that he didn't really have that much commitment on the court, but I need him to have another nuclear type of game. The Thunder don't have an answer for him whatsoever. Is Chet Holmgren, does he know that there's a guy next to him that's about his size and that he probably can check? I haven't seen Chet do anything on him. Nothing. So I need to see Wemby go into outer space. I need him to do that. He's an alien, play like an alien. We hit on cut down turnovers. That's obvious. That is just too much. Bench production. We haven't talked about this, James. In game 2, the Thunder bench 41 to the Spurs 25. And can we call it as it is? Has Keldon showed up at all in these playoffs? Just playoffs. And this is a reigning 6th man of the year. He needs to do a lot more than what we're seeing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so let me start with Keldon right there. In the playoffs, he's had moments, Jeff, or a moment or two, and specifically that game 6 against Minnesota, right? He had 21 points. He was 72% from the field, 33% from 3. He had a great game in that one, but you would like to see a lot more from him, considering where the Spurs are at with their roster right now. So yeah, you're gonna need to rely on KJ, big body, a lot more to kind of fire up this bench, man, because it just really feels like once Wemby's out, once Cornette's in, and some of the guys are starting to get on, like Harrison Barnes, etc., the Carter Bryants, once they're on the court, there's not much offensive production, Jeff. I mean, Keldon did have 10 points in this past game. He was the leading scorer off the bench. But other than that, Harrison Barnes with 5, Cornette with 4, J-Mac with 6. There's not much in the way of offense on that bench, and that is concerning now that Dylan Harper is looking like he's going to be out for, who knows, a game 2 or maybe the rest of this series, right? And he was that spark plug, that energy, that playmaker coming off the bench, as well as Keldon, and they worked in a great tandem in that regard. But if it's just Keldon, then man, he might be overcompensating a little bit, and things might go sideways for them. So that's definitely key, man. You want to see more out of the bench, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from James and his keys to victory. I just showed you mine, but what about his? That's coming up next, right here on Spurs in Focus.
As the new leader of the Decepticons, I command you to subscribe to Spurs in Focus.
Anakin Skywalker making an appearance here on Spurs in Focus. There, we are back, joined by James Espinosa. He is on next at Sir Edward James. He is the guy, the man, and the rest of his crew over at the Sunday Sports Rush Radio, as well as Mike Sports Network. He's going to brag about that in just a few seconds. All right, James. So before the quick little break, I gave you my keys to victory. What do you got?
Yeah, man, I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. Cut down on the turnovers. Like, minimize those turnovers. Get out of the 20s when it comes to trying to
go. And get out of the 20s. That's
minimize that to about 12 or 13, right? If you do that, I feel the Spurs are going to be a lot more competitive in this game. And quite frankly, Jeff, they were competitive in this last game, they were in it all the way until about the last minute or so, Jeff. They were competing. They were still hanging around. It's not like Oklahoma City just absolutely blew the doors off of them. They were still in it. It's the Spurs have been shooting themselves in the foot, and credit Oklahoma City and what they're doing defensively. They've been outstanding. Cut down on the turnovers. I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Jeff, about Wembenyama. We don't need him to be good. We don't need him to be great. We need him to be what he is, otherworldly, Jeff. He has to take over a little bit more in my estimation. And I'm going to be interested to see how they handle Hartenstein and what Mark Daigneault has been able to do. They wanted to take away Wemby's presence at the rim. That's what they wanted, that because he controlled the rim in that first game in the double overtime classic. And in this past game, Jeff, Wembenyama, I looked at the shot chart on NBA.com, right? In the painted area, Wembenyama was 3 for 6. And those 3 shots that he made, one was a little elbow jumper in the paint, and a couple of them were right at the basket, dunks, etc., right? But he did miss 3 in the paint. So he was, not his most effective down there. And Hartenstein and company were doing a good job. Now, yes, I understand the refs, right? And Spurs fan has been all over the refs thing. And look, I mean, you're pulling Stephon Castle's hair. You're pulling on Wemby's arms. You're bear hugging him at times. I think that's going to get rectified in this game. I think Wemby's going to start getting a much friendlier whistle, so to speak, especially at home. I think we're going to see Wemby get to the line a lot more, but I just want to see Wemby get back to attack mode, get to the rim, attack, and even maybe take some middies. They're giving Wemby wide open shots around the free throw line, around the elbows. Maybe take some middies and force Oklahoma City to move up a little bit more, guard you on the perimeter, and thus open up the paint for not only him, but other players as well who are slashing to the hole. So I need to see a little bit more out of Wemby, need to cut down on the turnovers. And then lastly, I will say this. We need Julian Champagnie to show up at some point. Because the 3-point numbers for Champagnie here in this Western Conference Finals, he's 4 of 18 from 3-point land in the 2 games played so far. That is 22% from 3-point land. We need to see him be more consistent. They're going to need him to knock down some shots, And I got a feeling at home with the crowd behind his back and him being a little bit more comfortable with the rims at the Frost Bank Center, friendly environment, I think we will see him knock down a few more shots. But man, it's been discouraging just watching him at the 3-point line. Not a great start for him. Need more from him from that 3-point line.
All Spurs fans know this. Even you, James, know. If he's cooking, Spurs are likely almost unbeatable because they have to honor his 3. That leaves Wemby and the rest of the guys to slash, do whatever they got to do. But here's the thing. Look at some of his numbers now, Champagnie. So in the semifinals, 11.5 points per game that against Minnesota, shooting about 37% from the 3 line. Not bad. Against Portland, about 10 points per game, shot nearly 62% from the 3 line. So he's already plummeted already once, but still 37% ain't bad. Now let's look at the conference finals. He's averaging a playoff low 9.5 points per game and 22% shooting from the 3 line, James.
Yeah.
That is not good. Now, he's doing other things. He's averaging about 7 rebounds per game. He's giving you about 2 assists, about a block a game, a steal a game, minimal turnover. He's not turning the ball over at all. But then again, the ball is usually never in his hand. So there's that. He's still a plus 9.5, but you need that 3 shot to start falling. I got to see a lot more from him. So it just feels like, well, I should say feel. Let me rephrase that. I know it's a split. I know it's a 1-1 right now. But James, let me ask you a big question here. Who's in control of the series? Who do you think is in control? I don't know. I can't say right now.
I think that the Spurs, I honestly think, even despite losing game 2, I think that they have been, in my estimation, the better team. I think this is a product of the Spurs simply outplaying themselves in terms of the turnovers, in terms of, not knocking down the shots that they're accustomed to. And I'm not trying to take away anything from Oklahoma City. They're the defending champions,
Sure.
and they're not dead until they lose 4 games in this playoffs. They are absolutely not dead, not out of it. This is a champion that you must respect. And like Ric Flair once famously said, to be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
Yep.
And right now, they are the man. So the Spurs, look, I think they've played better to a degree. I think they're the better team. And the turnovers, Jeff, this has to be cleaned up. If it's not, the Spurs are going to lose this series. But I do believe, Jeff, that they will eventually clean this up. I think the Spurs have the upper hand here, getting that split in OKC, showing they could win one in OKC, and now coming back for 2 games in San Antonio. I'm going to give the Spurs the upper hand right now.
Yeah, so it goes both ways. So 2 down, 7-game series, 2 down, 5 left.
Yeah.
So Spurs, technically, as of now, they do have the home court advantage. So there's that. But you look at it, it's like, okay, Spurs, you got to beat the Thunder 3 out of the next 5 games.
Yep.
And then in the vice versa. Okay, Thunder, you got to beat the Spurs 3 out of 5 games. It's almost like it's a push. Like, if you're to tell me tonight that the Spurs want to be, okay, great. Yeah, I expected that. You're saying Thunder want to be, yeah, they are the defending champs. These teams they're not identical. They have some strengths and weaknesses, but they almost are just like look in the mirror. And what gets me is that you're right. The Spurs on paper, they are the better team. It's just, my God, that flopping, the turnovers, those little things, points off turnovers, are going to make the difference in this series. The war of attrition, who has the most gas in the tank? Because by this point in the season or the postseason, the Thunder knows what the Spurs are going to do. The Spurs know what the Thunder are going to do. It's who's going to execute and do the little things. And that's where I'm like, I don't know who's in control, because the Spurs can execute, they can have poise, and they can do the little things.
And it's also, you gotta pay respect, like we're saying, right, to the experience of the Thunder and what they've known to do. I mean, they lost, just talking about last year, for example, right? They lost game 1 of their Western Conference Finals, and they still went on to win that series, right? We've seen them in dogfights before, and they've managed to come out on top. I mean, look at what happened in the NBA Finals last year against Indiana, right?
Yeah.
That one went 7 games, albeit, injury to Indiana and things kind of went haywire for them. But they're a team that is to be respected, and they can easily come in to game 3 and win by 20 points if they're firing on all cylinders, right? They are capable of doing that. So, hey, it, like you said, it's a push. It's virtually even.
Yeah.
It's a heavyweight battle.
It is.
We're still in the early rounds, right? But both teams have taken some shots, and both teams have lost some players. And now it's going to be up to, in my opinion, how does Mitch Johnson adjust? How does Mitch Johnson get his offense going? How does Mitch Johnson make some defensive adjustments as well, going against Mark Daigneault, who also now will have to make those adjustments? So the coaching matchup to me is going to be a critical factor going forward in this matchup of how these teams can manage the attrition and how these teams can get through these injuries.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's on both sides too. It's not just the Spurs dealing with injuries. It's the Thunder as well, man. And they lost a big piece.
Yeah.
That's arguably their second best player.
Absolutely.
Well.
And don't forget, not only J-Dub, but they did lose AJ Mitchell as well.
Right.
He looks, I mean, he's pretty, I mean, his injury looked pretty significant. Now, still waiting on updates for that and everything, but that's a tough one for them. They've lost a couple of key guys.
Man, oh man. So before we get a prediction though, game 3, who has the pressure to win? Is it the Spurs or is it the Thunder?
San Antonio.
I'm with you. I agree. I think it's the Spurs.
I think you got to come out and defend your home court. You got to come out on fire. You got to give this crowd, this fan base, you got to give them something. You got to get that place rocking. The San Antonio Spurs have to be the tone setters in game 3. They must do that. You cannot be lackadaisical coming out of that locker room. You cannot be lackadaisical after that opening tip. They have to be the ones that establish the tone Jeff, and get that crowd rocking and rolling. If the Thunder come out and silence that Frostbank crowd and have everybody sitting on their hands and have everybody kind of twiddling their thumbs and scrolling through Twitter, it's not going to be great. They can do that though. They have the silencers, right? They have the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the 2-time MVP at that, who has been a problem, who in game 2, it was on one of my notes. Who's going to neutralize him?
Yeah.
Who's going to neutralize him? Because he came out after a slow game 1, and he came out and dropped 30 points and 9 assists in game 2. So how are they going to match up with him? He's the one that I'm watching the most. Obviously, we all are. But the pressure is on San Antonio to get this victory here in game 3.
I'm with you. I think the Spurs, they're in the if there's a must-win scenario, it's for them, not for the Thunder. Because, yeah, I mean, that's because then you would have to beat the Thunder. Not only did you re-lose home court advantage, so you give it back to the Thunder. Then you got to say, okay, now you got to beat them X amount of times. And then guess what? They got the game clincher possibly in their gym.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah. And what a heavyweight fight this has been.
It's been fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's been great to consume, stressful, but these are the moments that we've been wanting for years and years and years. It's been such a long time, since 2017, since we've had a Western Conference final. These are the moments that we live for, Jeff, to watch the Spurs in a moment like this. So look, Spurs fans out there, just settle in. Don't panic. Don't hit that panic button yet, man. This is a long ride. We're in the early rounds. Stay the course and stay strong. And like my good friend Aiden Ducker, my co-host and producer of the Sunday Sports Rush, we were texting and he said, hey, this ain't supposed to be easy. Championship runs are not easy. There's going to be adversity, and this is one of those moments. And let's see if the Spurs can pull through.
James, I got Spurs by 5 tonight. What do you got?
Oh, wow. Hey, okay. You got them by 5. I actually have my notes right here in front of me. I was working on this earlier today. I have Spurs behind the home crowd and energy of the Frostbank Center. They're going to come away with a close victory, 105-100.
Whoa, no way.
Yep.
Both nailed it.
105-100. That's what I got. And I got a big game from Castle tonight. I think Castle's going to rebound. I think he's going to shore up some of those turnovers. I think we get a big Castle game tonight. And I think Wemby, as you said, and as you have clamored for, I think Wemby's going to go a little bit off tonight, especially in front of that home crowd. I think he's going to try to reestablish himself as the alpha of this series.
Well, we got the Spurs by a -5 right now to get the win, right? Vegas has the Spurs winning by 1.5. That's the spread right now. That's how close Vegas is making it right now. That's via DraftKings, by the way. But the total points though, according to DraftKings, 217.5. That's kind of low.
It's a little low. It's a little low right there. But I mean, you know, with the way these teams are able to play defense, it's going to be, and especially the deeper we get into the playoffs, those totals are going to be a little bit lower than what we're expecting. So it sounds about right.
He is James Espinosa. You got to follow on X at Sir Edward James. Hey, James, we need you to brag about the Sunday Rush, my sports network. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, so down here in Corpus Christi, I appreciate, of course, Spurs In Focus for having me on. Down here in Corpus Christi, I have a radio show Sunday mornings. It's on News Talk, KEYS, 1440 AM, 98.7 FM. We also have our own 1440 Keys mobile app, so download that, especially for you guys out there in San Antonio or the surrounding areas, right? We're on, man. We've been hyper intensive on Spurs talk. This is a Spurs city. I've been seeing flyers all around, Jeff, on my social medias from various establishments here in Corpus Christi. Spurs watch party, Spurs watch party. This city here in Corpus is going insane for Spurs basketball. This has always been a Spurs hotbed. So we're covering the Spurs, of course, intensively. And we're going to be on from 9 to 11, man. We're very playoff basketball focused, but we do cover the Cowboys, Longhorns, Astros, Rangers. Anything Texas, we do cover, and we bring in the national perspective as well. So make sure you guys tune in. Sunday Sports Rush. Give me a follow on Twitter at Sir Edward James, and give me a follow on Instagram as well at Sir Edward James 17 at Sir Edward James 17 if you can, and I'd appreciate that.
Do Spurs fans in Corpus go honking after wins?
No, unfortunately, there's not the Southwest military vibes down here, but we do party hard for the Spurs. We do party pretty hard for the Spurs down here.
Well, hopefully, if they do win the title, then Corpus drills out.
If they win the title, I will lead the honking parade in Corpus.
Yes.
I will be the one that gets it started, and we'll cruise down what we call Shoreline Drive here, right off the coast. Nice, beautiful strip that we have right off the Gulf. We'll lead that charge. I'll lead that charge. I'll be the man on that wall if the Spurs win the NBA Finals.
He'll be the grand marshal of that event. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. James Espinosa. Yes. Big applause for him. Hit the time out of his schedule to join us here on Spurs in Focus. Again, follow him on X at Sir Edward James. Do that right now. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Spurs in Focus your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs. We're on iTunes, YouTube Music, Amazon Podcast, Spotify. Go subscribe right now. Yeah, ignore everybody else. You want to come here first to Spurs in Focus each and every day, every time you want some Spurs info. We are your first and only spot, Spurs in Focus. And by the way, leave us your comments. What do you think about our thoughts on Game 3? We gave us our spread. We have a Spurs -5. Are we too generous there? Think it's be a closer game like Vegas? What are your keys, and what have you been noticing from these Spurs Thunder games so far? And those are small sample size, but there are trends, some good and some bad. Let us know ASAP. Sir Edward James, me on X at Jeff G Spurs Zone, and Substack. Go subscribe right now. Spurs in Focus on Substack, completely free. Sign up right now. And yeah, go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go, baby. Come on.
Yes, come on, Spurs. Get that 2-1 lead after tonight. All right. So for Mr. Sir, I like to call him Sir James Espinosa. I am Jeff Garcia, and now you're in focus with Spurs in Focus.